Now we come to a very interesting and engaging session. I say interesting and engaging because it has taken us 5 years to persuade Claire Chiang to come and give the lecture on Shirin Fozdar, because in keeping with the tradition of legacies, we thought many years ago that to coincide with the Women's Conference, it would also be appropriate to have what we call the Shirin Fozdar Annual Lecture. And for the past 4 years, we've been very lucky to have invited some wonderful people and having them accept our invitations all the time, including Marina Mahathir, who made the same point that Prof. Chan was saying today with respect to Malaysia, that in Malaysia, with all the talk of the politicians, the women's lot was still not very good. And the media, I think, carried that quite effectively. So our speaker today is somebody that we have worked with for many, many years, and we've had the good fortune of her advice. But, you know, I've been trying to tell her for the last 3-4 years that, Claire, it is time that you remembered Shirin Fozdar's spirit in the way, perhaps, that others may not have been so familiar with, and therefore may not have been able to capture as effectively. So finally, this year she succumbed and agreed. And I'm also very happy that one of the rare times that we have both husband and wife in the audience when this is being done. So it's a great honor and pleasure. Claire is known so widely and well, and in the booklet we list some of her many achievements. So I will not take up more time, but instead call upon Claire Chiang to deliver the 5th annual Shirin Fozdar lecture. Claire.
Professor Chan Chi, Chairman of SMU, my equal half, Mr. Ho. I didn't say better half, I said the equal half. President of SMU, Professor Arnold the Mayor, Your Excellencies, Madam Yu Fu Yishun, former Minister of State, Jimmy Foster, Paru, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends of the Shirin Fozdar program. How time flies. Today marks the last of the Women in Community series. Ambassador Chan had painted a broad picture on the women's condition in Singapore. I'm going to take a different tack and share my experiences and to reflect what had inspired me in steering the Shirin Fozdar program. In the last 4 conferences, every tale we heard was an inspiration about women overcoming struggles and finding opportunities, managing their fear and coping with resilience, finding possibilities and fulfilling promises. This capacity in crystallizing passion into ideas and ideas into plans is the real focus in community building. Today, I would like to share 3 main thoughts. First, how business can be meaningful and foster change. Second, why and how women must lean in to stay relevant. And lastly, how making choices and exercising personal control are the centerpieces in empowerment. I taught and did research in Hong Kong University and the National University of Singapore for 16 years. I owed my turning point from academia to business to Shirin Fozdar. In my eyes, she was a humanist, transcending time, cultures, and place. My family had a special relationship with the Fozdars. My late father-in-law was a supporter of the educational programs started by Mrs. Shirin Fozdar in Yasathon, an impoverished northeast province of Thailand. Her aim was to equip these young girls with vocational skills so that they could be independent. She was 81 years old when we first met in Bangkok. That encounter changed my life, when she inspired me to buy 2 cushions, which she said would support a girl in school at Yasathon. I thought 200 cushions could change a village and 2,000 cushions an entire district. Years later, our company helped Shirin Fozdar son, Mr. Jimmy Fozdar, build his mother's dream school, the Santin Tam Vidyakon School at Yasathon, which has educated thousands of students and won many excellence awards. Subsequently, during the early 90s, in the ASEAN Conference on Handicraft Industry in Hanoi, I learned about the marketing challenges our ASEAN sisters face. My husband was just starting up a hotel business, so I opportunistically proposed the use of indigenous craft for our furnishings. This was the early stirrings of the idea that business could serve as a positive force of development. I was just completing my research program at NUS, and I felt it was time for a change. My academic training and teaching experience on development sociology included years of travels in the region with my husband on motorbikes, trains, and bus coaches, which nurtured and sharpened our perspectives about diversity in real life and continues to impact the way we have chosen to run our business today. We were students of development and pluralism, and while enjoying the carefree joys of backpacking, would also agonize over conflicting ideas on development and progress, the contradiction between capital and labor, between profits and justice, between efficiency and equity, between the roles of men and women and those of the state and the citizens. Heavy staff to while away the time during inevitable delays for trains and buses, lots of quarrels along the way. But you know, we could do all that because there were no mobile phones those times. What can we do, we ask, when the richest 2% of the world's population owns more than 50% of global household wealth? Nearly half have no electricity and live for less than $2 a day. 1/4 are illiterate, and 1/5 have no access to health care. The reality was, and still is, a broken system, which we each have to try to fix in whatever little ways we can. This desire to create an impact, however small, to change the disequilibrium, pushed me to incorporate Bantry Gallery in 1994, the retail arm of a hotel and resorts. Operating now over 80 retail shops globally, while servicing the procurement need of our hotels, we became a significant supply chain player within the group. Till date, the gallery has 82 community suppliers worldwide. Last year, with the opening of our 2 new hotels at Langko in central Vietnam, we collaborated with Viet Artisans, a cooperative championing the employability of the women at the Mekong River Delta. From around US $10 a month in the past, they're now earning 10 times more, still an admittedly small average monthly income of US $100. But with that income, they were able to send the children to local schools and improve their home conditions by having floor tiles and concrete roofs to withstand the torrential monsoons and typhoons. It took so little to improve another person's life. I asked, as a typical sociologist would, how do we align doing business and doing good for the community? Must businesses be a jungle for avaricious survivors, leaving no place for responsible players? I'm sure this question is top of mind for many young women here today who are considering setting up social enterprises to address the poverty they see around them. I went back to history to seek inspiration. The first book I co-authored during my 4 years at the Center for Advanced Studies in NUS was published in 1994 by Prentice Hall, entitled Stepping Out, The Making of Chinese Entrepreneurs. The book reviewed the lives of 47 Singapore pioneers, and we weaved a composite story about their goals, failures, and fighting back. These were tales of ordinary people who became heroes of their own destiny, upholding their human dignity and cultural pride by turning obstacles into opportunities, opportunities into fortunes, and fortunes into responsibilities. Among many insights which shaped my views about business was the notion of doing good, which repeatedly surfaced in the transcripts. The phrase often used in the Chinese business community is 取益社会,用之社会, meaning contribute to society in return for what you have benefited from society. Motivated by the sense of duty to serve the community, our early pioneers, after they became wealthy, built schools, hospitals, roads, and many Singapore institutions. Interestingly, these entrepreneurs were most concerned about their moral standing. Dr. Goh Keng Swee, the architect of Singapore's modern economy and a former finance minister, wrote in the foreword of our book about ethical leadership having a binding quality. And I quote him, "Honesty, industry, and frugality are virtues, along with the clarity of vision and ability to act. It is only by virtue of every definite and highly developed ethical qualities that it has been possible for the entrepreneur to command the absolutely indispensable confidence of his customers and workmen. In the era when the rule of law was inadequate, what became binding, constraining, and reinforcing was a moral order created within the business community itself." And I quote my own book, "Personal ambition was tempered by a collective sanction on the right and wrong ways of doing business, on what contributed good or bad business, on who formed a trustworthy or untrustworthy business partner." It was not important whether there was an empirical reference for proving the existence of such a moral order. Our tycoons believing the moral order was out there was enough to guide and restrain their thinking and actions, and imposing restraints on unbridled wealth projections. This conscious balancing is characteristics of the entrepreneur, who, being a self-interested, instrumental entrepreneur on one hand, also allows himself to be morally directed on the other. Both modes are operative in any entrepreneur, and a good one will mediate tactically between the two. That, for me, is the hope and promise in business. That is the ethos we have to return to. Capitalism does not have to be, indeed cannot be, measured only in one-dimensional realm of profit. I was in New York 2 years ago during the week just before Hurricane Sandy struck. I gave numerous interviews and 2 talks to the Asia Society and the Columbia Business School, focusing essentially on China and the role of business. I was impressed by the optimism among Americans despite the downturn, and even more struck by the rainbow colors of people in the audience. They were black, white, yellow, mixed, painting a rainbow civilization comprising of an emerging diversity of people working and living together. This exciting rainbow era, what may that look like? Read Civilizations by Niall Ferguson. He painted a fascinating tale of the ups and downs of empires and how China reached the zenith of world progress in the 14th century when the US and Europe were still in the backwaters. Yet 500 years following that, China declined, while the West painstakingly built the necessary institutions and human capital, which paved the way for European imperialism and then American hegemony. Today, 500 years later, much of the intellectual vigor which propelled the West to supremacy is now spent. And China once again is ascending to take center stage. It is an Asian era. But Asia requires profoundly different and diverse, innovative thought leadership to help shape a sustainable and new paradigm for progress. It no longer can simply follow what used to work in the West. We need a new roadmap to get to where we want. What could that be? I believe in heritage and roots, in us working harder at discovering our own history and culture for inspiration in creating an Asian variant of capitalism. One such source can be the webs of mutual obligations which serve as a common, recurring socio-ethical tradition in Asia. Communitarian capitalism is an Asian form of ethical wealth creation, where the interests of a community of stakeholders in the enterprise, the owners, the employees, customers and suppliers, and of course the larger community, would be a higher consideration than simply the return on capital. In short, this model is stakeholder-driven and not shareholder-driven. It is characterized by collectivism, public-private sector partnership, family businesses, inclusive leadership, multilingualism, entrepreneurism, as well as intrapreneurialism within organizations. Business leaders could assume the responsibility to develop innovative, value-based models for development by accurately comprehending the issues facing a community and a community empowering its leaders via an earned trust in the pursuit of overall society prosperity. I no longer feel the need to present the business case to argue why businesses must perform beyond economics. It is in the end a leadership call for me to set a priori first principles in doing business the way I believe is right. Being a co-founder, together with my husband KP, we have a duty in our corporation to set the tone in visioning what is responsible business and how to translate these values to shape corporate culture, business stratagems, our products and services. More importantly, it requires guiding our teams in understanding business are made of people, and our value systems must guide how business choices are made. Capitalism in itself is not disillusioning. It is the way we work as businesses which requires reassessment. Therein lies the power and the promise of business. So I began to ask questions in our company. How can we be more transparent in the way we run our organizations? What must change in the way we operate to reduce our carbon footprint, wastage, and use of electricity? How do we align our corporate competences to create local solutions and employment opportunities? How do we design a management infrastructure, including its HR policy, to translate our values into good policies and practices? These core concerns led the group to set up the Banyan Tree Global Foundation in 2009. Doing the right thing as a responsible business is a stepwise journey we mindfully undertook. We formed a network of CSR champions in 5 continents, delivering service to those in need. We galvanized our 12,000 associates in committing to doing good as a first principle and believing the triple bottom line is basic business guidance. In a quick snapshot, apart from an improved performance, our 2013 non-financial highlights included planting 300,000 trees since 2009, mentoring 27 teenage children, setting up a social enterprise to teach vocational skills to 16 years old in the old town of Hoi An in Vietnam, adopting operational guidance on saving water, electricity, and waste. These are group-wide initiatives, separate from specific need-driven programs carried out at the local level by our champions. I invite you to access Banyan Tree website to read our sustainability reports in the last 8 years. These efforts are not a PR exercise. Banyan Tree promotes a set of values which people all aspire to express what's within themselves and to give the best of themselves. People ask me, is Banyan Tree's focus on CSR values due to my feminine touch? I could only take credit for being persistent over the decades in championing the CSR cause by working with all hotel leaders and local CSR champions. But of course, having the chairman, my equal half, also committed to this enlightenment, the task is made much easier. We all know any lofty idea without a plan has no wings to take off. It is through teamwork, group feel, and a sense of mission among the young associates in our group that makes this value proposition work. I alone cannot achieve the milestones. I move now to the second thought piece on how women translate the feminine principle. I think the notion of care and what Ambassador Chan talked about, the need for women to be more participative, is going to explain further. I'm going to explain further with what I'm going to speak about. The feminine principle. This may be an a priori definition, which you can challenge. I defined it to include reciprocal relationship, pluralism, integration, inclusiveness, balance, and teamwork, which to me are important qualities in shaping a better world order. These woman-centric qualities, which mean female leadership, is extremely important. There's plenty of literature about the nature of women and men, their behavior in organizations, and the structures and processes that enable or disable women to remain participative and engaged at workplaces. For those who wish to explore this further, please read Rosabeth Moss-Kanter, an American professor of business at Harvard Business School. Her study of men and women in corporation is a classic in critical management studies, bureaucracy analysis, and gender studies. And let me elaborate on a recent debate about how women can move forward. Two viewpoints were hotly debated last year, those of Anne-Marie Slaughter and Sheryl Sandberg. Based on their personal experiences and observations, these high-powered, successful women expressed strong views about the need to provide flexibility and choice to enable women to be independent by remaining in the workforce. While both women do not disagree, Sandberg is of the view that policy changes are slow and individuals should take the initiative to lean in and step forward, meaning women have to see themselves as the architects of their own destiny. Slaughter, who left a high-powered job to spend time with a family, is of the opinion that every woman should be able to have a family if she wants, and to also have a career, if she so desires. She believes it is society that must change. It must value choices that put family ahead of the work, just as much as those that put work ahead of the family. In valuing these choices, we would value the people who make them. If we value the people who make them, we would do everything possible to hire and retain them. Those who are bosses here and who are employers hate this. Both perspectives are equally valuable. The self must always be the power engine of change. This is a necessary start point. Designing family-friendly state policies are catalytic levers for transformation, no doubt. However, they become irrelevant if women do not seize and use this opportunity. Look at Singapore as an example. Women are having fewer children and having them later in life. Those who leave the workforce in their 30s to start families are rarely able to return, not because they don't want to, but often due to the lack of childcare infrastructure and flexible work options to enable them to juggle the twin demands of career and family. As a result, women's talents are underutilized and their creativity is not fully harnessed. Organizations lose key talent, and the country, while coping with the responsibilities to an aging population, also suffers an internal brain drain when highly qualified female talents have to leave the workforce. The Singapore government responded to this challenge. The Tripartite Committee on Work-Life Strategy is a multi-stakeholder composition of government agencies, employers, and the unions to enable a working environment with flexibility choices. The workflow scheme is one example which provides financial assistance to companies committed to implementing flexibility. Employer Alliance, formed 12 years ago, which I now chair, is a network of 1,800 corporations committed to enhancing work-life integration. We encourage CEO peers to set the tone at the top by recognizing the demands and choices employees face. We deliver programs to equip managers with the skill sets to organize flexibility teams. We encourage HR leaders to design effective work practices that include flexible job designs, clear performance assessments, and fair remuneration packages. And we saw over the years that organizations are evolving, albeit incrementally, to provide more opportunities for women. But it still relies on women to lean in, to adopt these practices, to chart their own career paths. And the real issue is, not many take up these flexibility measures. And the reasons ranged from the low awareness to doubts on productivity and work efficiency. And once women leave the workforce, they lose the opportunity to stay at the power center to compete in the contested terrain. Sheryl Sandberg's idea that women should visualize their careers as a jungle gym, not a ladder, is an insightful imagery. Ladders are limiting, with only one way up, whereas jungle gyms offer more a creative exploration with many ways to get to the top. Women can dream big and lean in, be more open to take career risks, sit at the table where corporate decisions are made, negotiate for work flexibility, and allow men to be more empowered at home. Let them cook. Meaning, zigzagging and coming in and out of the labor market, always leaning into new opportunities and finding solutions to challenges are what empowering women need to do. Do not sit back, wait for things to happen. Grumble about what is not there and hope for what cannot be. Finding this fit between the individuals, what they wish for, and what the significant other expects, be it the company or government, the partner or the family, is the game of the day. This process in finding the fit composes the necessary and sufficient framework for decision and leadership. That explains why many people failed in their dreams, because they let opportunities pass by instead of working the fit. Yet others excelled despite all the odds because they tweaked and fixed the challenges by leveraging all resources to make sure things happen and get what they want at different life points. The concept of having it all is not the prerogative of elite classes nor of large organizations. It is about creating a mindset of solutions. It is about wanting what you cherish in the first place. I'm too conscious of speaking as a city woman. There are so many sisters toiling in the rural sector with no access to basic needs like shelter, water, electricity, and daily regular meals. It seemed like a privilege to indulge in a conversation about choices and flexibility when our rural sisters do not even get that basic requirements to stay alive. What can I do? We sometimes blame individuals for their poverty. That's too simplistic. On the other hand, faulting the larger socio-economic systems can result in a paralysis as the debate is so nebulous that no one needs to feel accountable for or even to act. I've stayed away from this circularity of debate to avoid feeling the paralysis and a sense of powerlessness. So I simply ask myself, whose mindset should we change? Yours? Mine? His? Or hers? Who should act? The clearest answer for me is, I think, I plan, just do it. This brings me to the last piece of my talk about choices and personal control. I had many failures and missed opportunities. I failed to apply for the American Exchange Program at A level, National Junior College, because my mother said no. I failed to do nursing, even though my passion was in biology, because my older brother, who was in medical school then, said it was too hard for women and discouraged me. I failed to go to the London School of Economics for an advanced degree, even though I was accepted, because my family could not afford the fees. My husband and I missed the opportunity to go to INSEAD for a research fellowship program due to work conflict. I failed to stay another 18 months in Hong Kong University to convert my MPhil degree to a PhD degree because we were called back to Singapore due to a stroke my father-in-law had. I failed in my third pregnancy that plunged me to depression and a deep sense of loss for 6 months. This failure snapshot is merely to demonstrate that in all situations, although I'd always believed the self as an actor of change, I could not do as I had wished. The interplay of factors governing choices and decisions were beyond what I had wished. My life would have been so different if I had gone to LSE. But because I did not go there, I was able to make the choice instead to go to France and learn French that found me a job in French embassy afterwards to pay for my honors degree in Singapore University. During my stay in Paris, I met French sinologists who spoke excellent Chinese, which motivated me to find my roots and improve my Chinese. That focus helped me in my translation role in the embassy for 4 years and enhanced my competence in my business development role in China today. Looking back, I realized that when one door closed, another opened. There was a rainbow of opportunities and possibilities. My CV, which you read, was an outcome in spite of not having done all that I had wished. Other choices emerged. I took them and moved on. I truly believe that in every situation are embedded opportunities. As long as we persist in trying and doing, recognizing and accepting trade-offs in the choices we made, we will find our rainbow. Choices once made, our duty is to give it our level best. This repeated cycle of daily wins, daily failures, by trying and trying again, constitute our learning journey and help to fortify our life competencies. I hope the young girls in this room listen to that. I was particularly inspired by Viktor Frankl's book called Man's Search for Meaning. He is the founder of logotherapy and existential analysis. The core message in this book is that we can overcome the most desperate and hopeless situation by finding meaning and purpose or visioning a new possibility. In his years in the Nazi Holocaust concentration camp, he found a purpose to survive each day. Hope is a key driver of change. My grandmother, born in 1898, stepped out of Hainan, China in bound feet, worked as a rubber tapper, and survived her widowhood by stoically laboring in the plantations. Keeping the family together was her sole purpose. My mother lost her father early and was raised by a single mother. She worked in the laundry, sold bread in the streets, and raised 6 of us, guided by a simple belief that no one owed us a living, and we do what we can by doing our best, without comparing with those who are better and those who are worse. Life is a continual improvement, day by day. These women pioneers in my life were my spiritual anchor. In conclusion, to the collective in this assembly, men and women, boys and girls, I declare 3 promises. The first promise is, women have a unique nature to contribute to shaping a new world order. Enriched by our socialization experiences in juggling competing demands, we embrace larger developmental perspectives beyond economics. So we shall lead by doing, learn by exploring, and build by partnering with various stakeholders. This is clearly for me the humanizing women's touch. And only by being continually engaged at all decision-making levels can we balance the prevailing agenda by introducing new ways of thinking and doing. The second promise is we can shape the world by combining our nature with a rule of legal institutions and norms to restrain all kinds of excessiveness. Francis Fukuyama, who has written widely on issues on development and international politics, wrote an interesting and controversial article in 1998 on what if women ruled the world. His central thesis was to ask women to recognize male aggressiveness and not to waste time trying to change them culturally and ideologically. The more effective attitude, in his view, is for women to establish institutions, laws, and norms to restrain and sanction bad behavior. We can criticize Fukuyama for overstating his argument that men are aggressive and competitive and women are not, because we can cite evidences in anthropology to also demonstrate female aggressiveness. And I see in all the men here, they are quite gentle men. I will refrain from using gender stereotypes in relating to men and women. I believe good human qualities are gender neutral. So I would instead ask if peace and inclusiveness are preferred human qualities, what and how can men and women put in place the right ingredients in governance to create this social order on fairer terms? I will start by sharpening our understanding of the rule of law and propose new ones to protect and enhance the interests of women, just as Shirin Fozdar did with the Women's Charter in 1961. The third promise is women have powerful minds that work. The mindfulness to innovate or integrate, and network to make the right decisions in a dynamic way. M-I-N-D, the theme of the conference today. It must be ignited. In a world of accelerating change, this mindfulness involves a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning, anchored by a detached awareness of the ego, which puts everything in perspective. Only by doing so, we remove our fear of differences while staying analytical and relevant. We hope this continual mindful effort will lead to creating multiple rings of interest groups working collectively towards similar goals in defining the good society. In my conversations with Anita Roddick, founder of The Body Shop, Germaine Greer, a well-known feminist author, Elizabeth Choi, our Singapore war heroine, and Mrs. Xiao Pek Ling, founder of the Singapore Women's Association and the first woman parliamentarian, I found one common quality which they shared. Disparate though their backgrounds, it was the spirit and commitment to never say, I quit. Those were awe-inspiring encounters in my life. Founder of the Grameen Bank and Nobel Prize winner, Muhammad Yunus, once pointed out, poverty is not created by the people who are poor. Poverty has been created by the economic and social system that we have designed for the world. This is a clarion call. We need an innovative mind map, an enhanced roadmap to chase the rainbow in this century. Hopefully, conferences like today's is part of that harmonization process to forge our collective goals. We shall rise to this vision, what if women ruled the world, and learn to apply various repertoires of leadership skill sets to shape new ways of ordering our reality. We will scale down the command and control male leadership style to adopt, when necessary, a contractual and negotiated style that is efficient and professional, while strengthening a more feminine, integrative, and harmonizing touch. Such inclusive and flexible leadership style, if I may call it, the innovative feminine principle, which both men and women can embrace, will become, I believe, a necessary rainbow ethos to foster a sense of community. I'm also very happy to say, on the dimension of gender diversity, Banyan Tree, our group, due to enlightenment of our leader, Chairman, we ranked number 3 on the Singapore boards. Anita Roddick has said, community comes from the word communion, to share a common task together. And it is in the sharing of that task that people do bigger things than they knew they were capable of. Then there is really something to celebrate. We celebrate the women in the community. We do not wish to argue that we can do anything better than men, because that's not true. We can definitely believe, however, we cannot do worse, and that is courage. Finally, when men and women put their minds together and act for community, that is wisdom. On that note, I wish you all a joyous, galloping 2014 International Women's Day. Thank you all.